In a culture of opposing opinions and challenging times, how do you get your head above water and get a breath of fresh air? You look for hope. You look for answers. And we shift from silos of segregation to social engagement in a quest for solutions. Stop talking about what the problem is and let's discuss how to fix it. Join us now as America Connects with your host, Rob Dalton.
Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Rob Dalton. It's nice to have you on the show. Thanks for being a part of our audience, and thank you for including us into your day. Thank you very much. It's nice to have you with us. I am Rob Dalton. The show is America Connects, and I wanted to first welcome you, but also remind you that I don't know how you're listening to us or how you found us, but you can always find us at americaconnects.online. We have a YouTube channel as well. You can look for America Connects right there on YouTube. We have a nice show today. Today's topic is faith versus religion. Are they one and the same? And I think we'll get into a discussion. We've got some special guests on board today that are going to talk about their area of specialty in which they live and practice in. But for now, I just want to say again, it's nice to have you with us. I am pleased you're here, and I think this topic will resonate with many people around the country as their spiritual and religious and internal beliefs kind of shift as they move through age. And that's what we're about today. I like to start with a show introduction, a little opening monologue, so to speak, about what we're going to talk about. Times have been changing, and I don't just mean since the pandemic began. I mean for the last 10, maybe even 20 years, there's been a shift in people's belief systems. The topic for today is faith versus religion. Are they one and the same? We have seen an explosion in the past decade of non-denominational churches, as well as those trans-denominational churches. I began to notice this and wondered what they were for, and while all of a sudden we started seeing them, then I began a spiritual journey of my own. I began to grow and shift, and different life stages, the religions and the dogmas and the structures of our early foundations of Sunday services and such, they begin to mold us, but through time they begin to diversify as we develop our own individuality. We begin to build our own beliefs and faith. In the past decade or two, people's faith has shifted into a wide variety of diversity that these days doesn't fit into any religions or brick and mortar churches. For that reason, some people still belong to the foundational religions, whether it's Judaism or Catholicism or Baptists or others, including the religions abroad, Muslim and Buddhism, which are also practiced here. I like to think that of all these religions, they have an underlying core, the same basic principles of duty and honor, service, love, and of course, truth. But based on those principles alone, there is indeed a lot of diversity and directions faith can take us. There is a spirituality that's growing in much of our population, and people are actually scared to talk about it these days. I'm finding as I talk to people out here in America that their own faith is sometimes something they're questioning because it's so different from what they were born and raised in. They're scared to talk about it with others. They're fearful of being judged or no longer practicing what they once did. Will they be ostracized? Will they be judged? What exactly is their faith and why is it shifting? How can that be? And what I now know to be my own belief, and how does it fit into our society? These are things we're discussing today. Faith versus religion, are they one and the same? Let's see how you feel about it at the end of our show. With that introduction, I want to introduce our top three panel members. First, join me in welcoming Rabbi Jana De Benedetti. Hello, Jana.
Hi, thank you for having me on this podcast.
Thank you for joining us. I also, you'll be going first, but I want to introduce our other guests, Josh Johnson and Michael Popham. They have a church in West Hollywood, and thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. It's nice to have you on the show.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Rob.
Our other guest is Mr. Bryan Rigg. Bryan is a religious historian, and I'll get into his biography later. But Bryan, thank you for joining us as well. You're based in Dallas, so welcome. Nice to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
I wanted to mention that we'll start with Rabbi Jana. Thank you again for being on the show. A brief introduction, if I may. She lives in Shreveport, Louisiana, a rabbi for 15 years. Since the rabbinic seminary, did I say that right? Seminary International in 2007, where she was ordained a rabbi, a teacher, a counselor, and spiritual leader. So, Dr. Jana and Rabbi Jana, thank you for having the time in our show today. Really,
I'm really honored to be here. It's really a fascinating question as well. And as you were giving the introduction, I realized that one of the things that I did by not choosing one of the standard seminaries, Rabbinic Seminary International is one that prides itself on what they call ordaining modern rabbis. So they said that if you're a spiritual leader of any faith, you need to be a spiritual leader of all faiths, almost like a chaplain. And so they trained us in in all faiths, not just the few that we mentioned earlier, but many, many faiths. And I think that the questions that you rose are fascinating. I think people don't really know how to talk about God and their faith, and certainly not after they are children. They grow up and they don't have the kind of the tools or the vocabulary to be able to talk about it.
Especially if it's shifting into something that's foreign to them.
Well, I think that everybody's ideas will shift, and sometimes the community where they were raised don't always give you the tools to be able to mature with your faith. But for example, you take like an 8-year-old child who says, if God is everywhere, is God in my peanut butter sandwich? And an 8-year-old has to think that. But if that's the last time anybody talked to you about what a God concept is, and if you say yes, what does that mean? If you say no, what does that mean? Then once you're an adult, what do you do with that? Right. So sometimes it has to do with not giving you the tools. And it's a little bit frustrating. But my feeling is that what the religious organizations do and what humans do, what they need is what we need is to take care of ourselves and take care of each other and take care of the world. And I think that all faith-based systems do that. I think that, but humans need to do that. It doesn't require the faith-based, but the faiths help guide us for those goals.
In your work, since you've been a rabbi now, have you seen, as I mentioned in the introduction, a shift in people exploring a new faith?
Absolutely. Now I wanted to be rabbi all my life, but I was ordained about 15 years ago, and I've always served at this congregation. And we have had a number of people, and I live in the Bible Belt, so there are a lot of people who were raised with very specific faith-based backgrounds, very biblically based backgrounds. And a lot of people come to us trying to study. Sometimes they'll study what they call Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, and feel like they want a stronger foundation for their faith. And they wind up realizing that in our congregation, certainly, and in Judaism, I think generally, you get to ask a lot of questions. You get to challenge what you knew. And so,
sure.
And I have a secret for you. You can be a really good Jew and not believe in God at all. And I think that freaks a lot of people out. That was why I appreciated the concept of the faith compared to religion, because some of it is what you do and how you treat each other. And even if you're not convinced that God is in the middle of that, it's still the same kinds of morality and structure and the way you treat each other, the guidance, the guidelines.
I along those same lines, you can practice religion without having faith, but I know people who have faith but can't find a religion.
Absolutely.
And I see that as people. I have a circle of friends who I know have been in like 3 churches in 2 years trying to find a good fit.
And that happens.
Do you see people?
Fortunately, in some places, you have many churches to try and choose from, and then hopefully you do find a good fit for you. The Reform Jewish movement right now, for example, is doing something that they call audacious hospitality, trying to make sure that everyone feels welcome. that it doesn't matter. You can imagine the diversity, all diversity in human beings that's possible. Everybody's welcome.
Have you seen a conflict in faith versus religion during the pandemic in the past year?
That's a very good question, because the way that I think that would play out is that we have not, in our congregation, we have not been meeting in person at all. And so I think that if we're talking about faith versus religion, where the religion is kind of a structural aspect to your faith base,
yes,
I think that it's been frustrating for some people that they're not meeting in person. And I think it's been liberating for some people that we are doing awesome services online instead.
Yeah.
So in my congregation, we have some are YouTube services and some are Zoom services, and I think every congregation I've spoken with, who the pastors of every congregation, they point out that people from all over are joining their services because they're online and they can.
They're online,
and so
sure.
One of the things that's happened along the lines of the question you asked is that it's really easy online to try to find a congregation that matches, it's compatible with you. Way easier than it was when you were just, if you're living in Shreveport, you may not find a place that you feel is as compatible, but you can if you look up whatever it is that is your need. So
and you never have to leave the living room.
Exactly, exactly. And that's been I think I look at it as a blessing. I really think that's been a blessing, that wherever you are, you get to sit in your space. You get to sit and have dinner and still attend services. Right. Nobody cares what you're wearing. And one of the things that people have commented to me about with online services is that they sing as loudly as they want, and they're not afraid to sing. And that is a wonderful spiritual experience, is singing loudly, right, because they may not have been inclined to do that if they were with other people.
True. Yeah. They don't want to stand out. They want to blend. Well, good. Rabbi Jana De Benedetti, thank you. I'm going to move on and welcome our next couple of guests, Josh Johnson and Michael Popham. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
You tell me about your church. You're in a church in West Hollywood you've had for many years now. Tell me about your church.
So we are, thank you again for having us. It's an awesome opportunity to be here and talk about this very relevant topic of faith versus religion, which is something that we deal with pretty much each and every Sunday since we've been in existence. But we are the only non-denominational inclusive church here in West Hollywood. West Hollywood is a very diverse city, as you probably have heard.
I've heard, yes.
through many channels, and it just saying a Christian church led by two men that are married. I mean, we could drop the mic there, I guess, and walk out. We're very, all I have to say, we're very left of center, just because of the nature of the people that come to our church. The rabbi was talking about diversity, which is such a not only in our political and social atmosphere, but also the church realm. Diversity is really been a heightened topic, especially because of the last year the church has been asked to speak up on racism and all of these things that we've been so silent on. So the church has a part to play in that. But we're a church here. Similar to the rabbi, we could share, I'm sure, some more stories about coming online. We have had church in our house here. We've converted our house into our sanctuary.
Good.
We've got lights and a sound system, and we're sitting on our sofa, things like that. But we realized that with our precious congregation that we had to stay connected. And so we started out, March the 14th or whatever that first Sunday was here, and have been doing that ever since. And we've kind of cultivated our home and this temporary sanctuary into what we have every Sunday for our 11 o'clock service. So we have definitely found that that people have retreated inward, which is a little distressing, but that does cause them to want to, they're seeking a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose, a sense of security. And they can do that in their homes now without even being seen or even saying anything or having to, make an appearance, if you will. And they can even watch later in the week, those kinds of things. So, but the topic that we've been for today has been heavy on our hearts for many, many years, because we think that really do believe in the premise that faith is a close sister to spirituality, and that religion has to do with rules. We often call it religion, because it is all of the if you've ever been in church or not, religion has had an effect on you if you're living on the planet, because you've seen what the rules have done to people. From if they've grown up in church, if they've gotten hurt by church. We often say if you haven't been hurt by church, you haven't been to church, and that often has to do with the religion, or the religion part of it, when people want real instead of rule. And so we do believe God is about relationship and not rules. So that's what we talk about every Sunday.
I like that, religion. And I'm going to go back to something you said at the beginning, because the way you said it, there was a lot of passion, and you being a church of inclusion.
Yeah.
Help define that a little bit.
Well, I think that's always been our goal, is to actually live out for God so loved the world. That means everybody. It doesn't mean just the people that happen to fall in line with my agreed on principles. I had to laugh when I heard Rabbi De Benedetti talk about being from Shreveport, and the people that she was ministered to that were all around her that were very religiously educated.
Steep.
Those are the people that I came from. I'll bet dollars, donuts, I'll bet I know 100 of them exactly like you. I was raised in Texas in that steep religion, fundamental, and I have lots of friends all over Louisiana. Well, ex-friends, they probably wouldn't have much to do with me now, but, but just that whole journey of trying to reconcile who I knew that I was and who I knew that God was, and people were telling me that who I was inconsistent with who I knew God to be. And I began to see around me examples of things that just didn't exactly line up with what they said should be or should be allowed. And after so many years, I began to realize that I was the best example of my own argument. That people said that I was not able to exist, but I was looking at them and saying, well, I'm right here. I am who I am, but I'm a lover of God. And I know that he loves me. And so you can say I don't exist, but I know I do. And so that was where the journey really began for me personally, is to try to minister to people that were like myself, that had come to that intersection of, what they said God was and what I knew God was for me were just irreconcilable.
So you had your own faith journey as well. You had that struggle of faith versus the religion you were raised around.
Absolutely.
Yes, the rules.
The rules, right. You both have had this journey prior, but have you had the journey together inside your own church?
I would say that we kind of see a reflection of ourselves pretty much every Sunday, whether we're in a building or not, like walking through, literally or figuratively walking through our doors, because there are so many people like us that whether it was they were ostracized or denounced or criticized or rejected because of their sexuality, which is just, we always say we're Christians who happen to be gay, just like we're Christians who happen to be, white. We're Christians who happen to be Southerners, like that. It's bad. And to take that label off. We're not a gay church, but we say we're just the church. Just like it's just marriage. Take those labels off. It's about that. So the struggle is when, especially new people, getting them to realize that we know that you're hurt and we want to recognize that, and we'll get on that page with you, but that it was not God that did that. It was the people in the name of God that did that, probably sitting with their hands just like this and having the best intentions of the world, but it wasn't God that did that to you. And so it's about reconciliation. That is the main goal, is getting that person back to open themselves up to giving God a second chance. And that's a difficult thing to do, because people, that is when you hurt with church, that's supposed to be your sanctuary, your family there. whether it's chosen or otherwise. So that's what we deal with. That's the struggle, is getting the reconciliation component clarified and then getting it to move forward.
Thank you. I appreciate your insights and what you're doing out there and being inclusive and all inclusive. And I wish you continued success. I really do. Thank you. Stay tuned. I might bring you back at the end of the show. We'll have a nice little group talk. I want to introduce our next guest, Mr. Bryan Rigg. Bryan is a man. Hello, Bryan. Let me say hi.
Hey, Rob.
Bryan is a man of many talents. A Yale graduate, then at Cambridge for his master's and PhD in historical studies. He is a 5-time published author. His most recent book, Flamethrower, is Iwo Jima Medal of Honor recipient, U.S. Marine Woody Williams, Japan's Holocaust, and the Pacific War. I know about the book. I have a copy, but we're going to get away from that. But I wanted to give you that introduction because you deserve it. You spent many years putting that book together. But being a historian, and you have actually taught religious studies, the faith versus religion, are they one and the same? What's your take on all this after listening to the first couple of guests?
Well, I mean, obviously, as we're discussing this, they're very different. You know, you can have faith in anything, but religion, as Michael eloquently was saying, it's about laws. I mean, the Torah is the law. But when I'm in this panel, I'm smiling to myself and all that because I'm so happy to be American. The religious pluralism that James Madison and Thomas Jefferson gave us with the First Amendment of freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, allows for no theocracy, allows for no religious dictatorships. And because we can have plenty of different religions, it creates questioning, it creates almost like in our Jewish tradition that the rabbi and I share, the rabbinical tradition of making religion almost like in a partnership with God, more ethical and more relevant to our times. I mean, It's amazing what we have right now. I mean, we have this wonderful female rabbi, whereas just 100 years ago, not even. I mean, even today, many Orthodox and from the yeshiva world and Hasidic world, they still pray every morning, thanking God that God did not make them a slave, a Gentile, or a woman. That we have a female rabbi is remarkable, and that's a testament to America. And now let's get to wonderful Josh and Michael in a loving marriage. Leviticus 18:22 says, slaughter gays, slaughter any man who sleeps with a man like a woman. In fact, one of my dear friends who ran the Hillel at Boston University, who was gay, he had a Chabad, a very Orthodox rabbi, giving a talk about human sexuality, quoting this verse, thou shalt not sleep with a man like a woman. And he raised his hand very quickly, and he's like, Rabbi, I just want to let you know that I've always slept with a man like a man. you can't stone me, but it was the law at that time that said you had to not only condemn these people, you had to kill them. So, and that a woman could actually lead men in prayer at a leadership was unheard of because she was inferior position, because she was the inheritor of Eve, who made us guys sin by eating an apple. And as far as that is concerned, she's an inferior position to mankind. These are in the biblical text. But as you get more ethical people looking at human solidarity and what we should be doing to live a good life and being kind to one another, we put away a lot of these extreme, tenets in the Bible, although unfortunately they're still in there. And we tried to bring them to new light with how do we live a good life with one another. I mean, Another verse that Josh was quoting, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Well, what does perish mean? Well, actually it means that if you don't believe in this itinerant preacher, he's going to send you to hell forever. But I'm sure those are, sermons that the rabbi and the ministers here are not giving on Sunday morning and Saturday morning or Friday night. So we're evolving. And I think that's a great testament when you look at what's faith. Well, faith is, looking at maybe a higher power, or maybe looking at the, like the rabbi says, in Judaism, you don't have to necessarily believe in God. I love the joke that somebody asked Moshe, why do you go to synagogue? He's like, well, I go to be with Hashem, God, to be with the Almighty. Then they look at Shlomo and say, Shlomo, why do you go to synagogue? He's like, I go to be with Moshe. And so, you don't have to necessarily believe in God now for Judaism, but, in Christianity, a lot of times, if I go into a Christian church and say, I don't believe in Jesus and I don't believe in God, they're going to kick me out, normally, except at Josh and Michael's church. I'll be fine there. But most churches, you got to have a certain fundamental belief in Jesus and God, because that's what unites them. Whereas in Judaism, luckily, we have an ethnicity that bonds us, we have a culture that bonds us, and then we have a religion. And everybody's usually pretty open with that, except in the yeshiva world and the Hasidic world. So I'm so happy to be on this panel, and this is the future of America. And this is hopefully the future of religion. Because one thing that Rabbi did say, because we are Jewish, I have to disagree with something, that all faiths leading to better behavior. I've seen some pretty bad faiths out there. I mean, when I'm dealing with radical Muslims who want to kill me, I'm a former Marine Corps officer and I served in the Israeli military. These are not good faiths when they are intolerant. I think Baruch Spinoza said it well. We should only tolerate faiths that tolerate other faiths. Yes, I like that. Yeah. So there is a huge difference between faith and religion. I agree with Michael. Faith is something in God, a higher power, spirituality, as he was saying. And then religion is trying to codify how you need to behave within that structure. Right.
And he mentioned the religion. And that's,
I like that.
And invite some people in, which is good to get those foundational elements. But at the same time, it breaks people away because they want that freedom. So, Bryan, thank you for your insights. I really appreciate
thank you, Rob.
It. Well, we've had a wonderful couple of segments with Rabbi Jana De Benedetti. We've had Josh Johnson and Michael Popham, who have their own church, and our historian Bryan Rigg. We're going to just take a step down into everyday America and invite a couple people in just to discuss their own perception and their journeys. I'd like to welcome Celeste Oakland. Celeste, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I must say, this is a wonderful show. Since discovering you, I listened to all the podcasts and how timely and how terrific. And it's been a joy to turn my friends and my family on to listening in on what you have to share. Yes.
Thank you. I don't know that I've actually had a genuine fan on the show before. So I appreciate that. It's very nice of you. I appreciate you taking the time to invest. I really do try to pick timely topics that have some evergreen value. They're not just the topic of the day. These are things that I like to think that in a year from now, give or take the pandemic, still have some form of relevance. So I appreciate that.
Extremely so. Absolutely.
Well, our topic today, Celeste. Go. Religion versus faith. To you, are they one and the same? And have you been through a journey with those two?
I have been through a journey of the two. And personally, my experience has been that a religion that I love, I was raised in, is Christian Science. And that has been the foundation and fundamental of my faith, my way of being, my sense of myself and my relationship to God, my sense of myself and my golden rule in living in accord with others. It has been my guidance and my way of being since a child. And the religious factor came in insofar as without the structure of having a church and Christian Science practitioners and so forth, the belief is that I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. At the time I was born, my mother, the verdict was that her womb was eaten out with cancer, and that I wasn't going to fare very well. And the medical facility gave her up and gave me up. Wow. And at that point, she had a neighbor who was a Christian Scientist that she asked my father to go find a Christian Science practitioner healer. And he did so, and he drove from Biloxi, Mississippi up to Monroe, Louisiana. And this darling lady, devoting herself to the full-time practice of healing, spiritual healing, came back to Biloxi, and my mother and I were completely healed. And that was the beginning of my experience growing up in the Christian Science Sunday School and understanding my unity with God, and that God is love, and that God is all, and there's nothing that we can't address through our understanding of his ever-present care and power. And that has blossomed into that being my fundamental experience. And now the experience of embracing all modalities that that support spirituality, the understanding that we are more than just humans walking around.
We are. You've had a profound attachment to your religion over the score of your years. I don't mean it like a score, but in the years you've been an adult, has your faith wavered within that religion?
Great question. I would say that there are times my understanding and application of the principles that I was taught in Christian Science wavered insofar that there were times I doubted if I could conduct and perform the healing on myself or for another that came about. However, in my decades of being around, I can sit here and say that there's never been anything that ultimately I haven't been able to overcome and find the peace, the harmony, and the restoration from what appeared to be discord, dis-ease, grief. Yeah. Was I clear?
Yeah, it's your answer. I think it's perfectly clear. Okay. Yeah. I'm going somewhere with this, but have you had times of doubt?
Oh, yes. Very deep doubt. Not my doubt in God, but my doubt, or it would be the principles that I understand in Christian Science would be equivalent to the principles of math. I'm not really good at math. I haven't proficiently nailed that. However, at times when I've struggled with it, I haven't doubted the principle of math, but I've doubted my understanding and ability to come to the conclusion correctly in the application of it. And so perseverance, relinquishing my human struggles and letting go and letting God, I guess, is a good way to put it. There have been dark nights of the soul, so to speak.
I bring that up, and I liked your ferocity in which you had the answer. I'm going to go off on a small tangent, but I think listening to your story kind of feeds into my opinion here. I think one of our greatest gifts in faith and religion is doubt. And I'll tell you why I say that. I've had doubts along my journey between faith and religion. And what I find is I get the best answers when I'm in that moment of weakness in doubt. It's like it opens up a bowl that needs to be filled. And doubt allows, you're having that question of faith or of God or of your own individual path. And you create this bowl of, what do I fill it with all of a sudden? And then all of a sudden, when it's time, your bowl gets filled, and you reestablish whatever belief you need, or that extra moment where that doubt fills that passion or that faith in you. Do you find that to be true?
Oh, Rob, I think that's beautifully put. Yes, it's almost like you reach a moment of extreme emptiness, right? Or spiritual curiosity that you've abandoned all human reasoning, or you run out of your own ideas. Yeah.
Right.
I like that.
You're vulnerable enough to be empty, and the gift is, and some people look at doubt as a weakness, but I've learned that the strongest boost of faith, it comes after reconciling your doubt. Yeah.
It's almost like the spiritual quality of humility.
Yeah.
In a humble state, we learn, or surrendering. Oh yeah, very good point.
Thank you, Celeste. I didn't mean to steal so much of your time. It just came up.
No.
So,
beautiful.
Thank you. I admire your passion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert.
I'm going to move on with our next and guest, Chet. Manchester. Chet, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Rob. Good to be with
Nice
all
to
of
have you with us. I'm going to read a brief introduction. Chet's days are spent helping people find spiritual healing for problems ranging from illness to depression to relationship problems. He spent a decade traveling and lecturing on Christian Science and its founder, Mary Baker Eddy. He now lives with his wife in the Finger Lakes region of New York State, not far from Cornell University, or near the Harriet Tubman's home to the north, a region dubbed the Corridor of Consciousness in the 19th century. So you're in this line of work as well. So the same topic, the same question, answer I'm asking of you, religion versus faith, are they one and the same? What's your experience been?
Well, you know, thinking about this a little bit in advance today, I was thinking about, well, we're all individually looking for that relationship to a higher power, to God. And we're finding different ways to get there. You know, just people on your program here, you've got different approaches to it. But we're all looking for that individual connection with the divine. And so that's the faith journey that we're all on. And then you've got religion, which I look at as where we come together and share our insights and our practices and hopefully preserve some of this going forward. So, you know, every day I open up the Bible. I begin my day just poring over something. I usually try and bring some spontaneity to that practice of just opening the Bible at random and letting something on the page speak to me. And it opens up a dialogue with God, just begins a journey. And from that, I feel that I'm kind of going up on the mountain mentally and spiritually.
Okay.
But I got to come back down. You know, you got to come back down. You've got to be with people. You've got to share what you're gaining. To me, that's what religion demands of us. You know, Moses went up on the mountain and had these extraordinary insights into God as a lawmaker and the universe being governed by law. You know, that's the way I look at some of his insights. But then he came down, and I think all great religious thinkers, prophets, teachers have had to come down and share what they've gained. So for me, you know, I can't just hoard this. I can't just keep it to myself. So in one way or another, I'm always trying to figure out, well, how do I share this love that I'm feeling with others? And that leads me to, you know, some aspect of community. And I think religion, you know, tends to be that sense of community, that shared practice and shared ideas. But the issue is, how do you preserve individuality within the collective? Because a lot of times when people say, I'm spiritual but not religious, they're saying, I don't want to lose my individuality and get absorbed into this, you know, this too formal kind of religion.
Right.
Yeah.
So, that's a good point. I think that's a struggle for some people, and it's which pulls them away from the religion or keeps them from joining a new one.
Right.
Tell me about your spiritual journey.
Well, grew up with a mother who was a spiritual seeker and a dad who was a businessman and very comfortable with a life of materialism, you know, mostly, I would say. But my mother came upon Mary Baker Eddy's writings at some point, and you know, those writings just opened up a deeper practice of spirituality, and including this pursuit of healing. I'd been a sickly child growing up, and you know, had issues you know, with my health, and once she began this practice, what I found in attending Sunday school and beginning to discover my own relationship to God was that a lot of my illness was based on fear. And you know, and once I got a handle on the nature of God as love, and I remember distinctly as a 12-year-old finally just glimpsing this understanding of how loved I was, and that was the nature of God. It wasn't this punishing God or this vengeful God, but a God of love. I had this profound healing of strep throat which had plagued me, and I'd gone to my dad's friend, Dr. Weston, every winter, and usually faced weeks of terrible pain with that strep throat. But once I caught a glimpse of being loved, cared for, comforted,
it made the difference.
It just made it, my health I was healed of the strep throat that I was dealing with at that time, but I never again suffered from that illness.
And you were well on your way.
Well, it's just, I think love, the nature of God is love, is kind of the essence of what hopefully many of us are discovering in our own individual practices of religion.
And it can be done individually, and it can be done in a community environment. That's what we're here to talk about today. Yeah. Chet, thank you very much. I appreciate your personal insights.
Sure.
We're gonna begin to wrap up, but I want to bring everybody back one more time for a quick closing commentary. So please welcome back Rabbi Jana De Benedetti. Rabbi, thank you. Any closing comments from some of the stuff you heard?
I learned a lot. My spirituality has grown just by getting to meet these people and hearing your questions. I loved your idea about, there are biblical sources that are similar to what you said about finding God when you're in the worst situation sometimes, or finding spirituality. My take too is, it's not, for me, the pursuit isn't about God and isn't about love. It's about finding the awe in life, finding holiness in everything around you.
Yep. Good point. Thank you. Again, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. Josh Johnson and Michael Popham, any closing comments with the conversation you heard today?
Definitely. It was such a fantastic thing just to learn from other experts and leaders and what we're talking about today. And what struck me when we were talking about doubt is that I just wrote down doubt should bring you closer to God, because doubt, is about question. And how do you get to know someone? You ask them questions. So like, how can you, that's what relationship is. And so the more that I ask God questions, the better I know him, and it can be more like him. So that's what inspired me today, was just hearing that we all have doubt, and
yes, it's an opportunity to strengthen the bond and engagement. It is
definitely.
Both of you, thank you, and I appreciate the introduction of the term religion. So I'm writing that one down.
All right.
Thank you both.
Thank you,
and good luck at your church as well.
Appreciate it, Rob.
Mr. Bryan Rigg, you had a lot to contribute today, a lot of wisdom, a lot of depth in what you know. Any closing commentary from the discussion from you today?
Oh, thanks for your kind words. Don't raise your bar so low. When I was 19, I was brilliant. Now I'm 49, kind of confused. Kind of building on the doubt aspect and what Michael just spoke about. I always think of, any religion that can't have questions asked of it should be discarded. To have that questioning and openness, I think, creates tolerance and understanding. And then I like to just kind of end with Rabbi Hillel, which our rabbi here will know. I think if we all lived our lives according to his mandate, which he says, what is hateful to you, do not do to others, then this world would be a better place. And if we build our religious establishments on that principle, I think we could create a lot more tolerance. Because, I think we can all agree that this panel, I could sit down with these people, drink wine or have a glass of scotch and have a good time. But there's a lot of religious people, Jerry Falwell's, Pat Robinson's, the mullahs, and Iran, that I couldn't have this conversation with. In fact, they want to probably kill every one of us. So we have to continue to work on building our... Yeah. Well, continue to build out this dialogue and hopefully give people an example of what should be, which this panel shows. This tolerance and understanding and openness and questioning is a testament here again to America, and then I think where religious thought should be going.
Thank you, Bryan. Well wrapped up. Thank you. Chet, thank you for being part of the show. I like to say I save the best for last, but I appreciate your commentary and your journey as well. Thank you.
Thanks for doing this. It's so needed in the country today, just to hear each other out.
It's a good time. It's a good time for this right now. We need this kind of healing. Yeah, and our beautiful guest, Celeste. Thank you for being part of the show.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate your contributions and your passion. Thank you.
Most welcome. Nice to unite.
That's it. Thank you, Celeste. It was. I really enjoyed your view on and the depth of your faith in your religion. It's inspiring. I wanted to wrap it up. I wanted to thank everyone again for being on the show. I wanted to offer my gratitude toward Tony and his group at UNBN Go for hosting this wonderful event, and my producer, Lori Muslow. Again, you can find the show and any other shows at americaconnects.online. My name is Rob Dalton. It's been a pleasure having this panel and having your attention for the past several minutes. We hope you see the difference and the similarities in both and religion, and yet how independent they can be. And I wish you luck on your own spiritual and faith journey. My name is Rob Dalton. This is America Connects. God bless. And remember, America, let's stay connected.